Hello, and welcome to another episode of Momentum. I'm your host, Philip Allison. Our guest today is Sophie Ashbrook, a senior majoring in biomedical engineering. Sophie, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. So you are from the St. Louis area originally, and I know that Mississippi State gets students from virtually every state, but I'm always curious to hear about students who come from relatively far away. What is it that first brought you to Mississippi State?
Yeah, so I actually have family that lives down in South Haven, Mississippi, so Mississippi State has always been on my radar for college in general, but I would say that being able to come to campus and experiencing the family aspect that we always talk about was a really big selling point for me. I like to say, Mississippi State wasn't always my first choice, but it's the best spot I could have been in, and I've had a great 3.5 years so far, and I'm excited to wrap it up pretty soon and move on to that next chapter, but Mississippi State's always going to have a huge place in my heart, and I've absolutely loved being here.
Well, you mentioned your family. Did they have a role in getting you to visit or to
yeah,
consider?
So my parents told me that I should just kind of visit and feel out how I would feel about coming to school here. And actually something that a lot of people don't know is I was originally computer engineering. So I met with the computer engineering department as well as I did a Roadrunner tour, and I met with the engineering department. And I remember whenever I came, I was kind of like, I don't really know if this is somewhere that I want to be. But after having my visit and meeting with everybody, I realized that I couldn't picture myself anywhere else. Like Mississippi State was where I needed to be specifically.
Yeah, I felt like home a little bit.
Exactly. That family aspect that everybody says, the we ring true, it's very applicable in everyday life as well as whenever you do come and visit. You feel like your family the second you step foot on campus.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you initially thought about computer engineering. Did you always know that you were going to major in engineering, or did you consider some other options?
There was a really long time when I wanted to be a doctor and go get my MD. So a big thing for me was making sure that that door could always be open. Engineering, is a really great way to have that pre-professional track, so pre-law or pre-med. So whenever I was first picking out majors, I really enjoyed the aspect of computers, but I learned very quickly I didn't really like to code. So for me, it was back to the drawing board and kind of thinking about my future and what I wanted to do long term. I had a really big interest and passion for biology my whole life, and I was always really good at math. So biomedical engineering is kind of where I settled, and I love it. It's that really good aspect of the base of mechanical engineering while also getting that sprinkle of biology and chemistry in your education and being able to focus specifically on, at the time for me, that pre-professional track. Down the road, I figured out med school was probably not where I actually wanted to be, but it's only one class different in biomedical engineering to be pre-med versus just being a biomedical engineer. So it's a really good opportunity for people that are interested in med school as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask about how you made that transition from computer engineering to biomedical, and I know that a lot of students enter that field because they want to become doctors.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense that was your line of thinking there.
Yeah, and I think a big thing too is that biomedical engineering, it is very much thought of as a pre-med track for engineering, but that's not true. There's a lot of industry jobs that I've been looking at specifically. Grad school is a really big option too in the research field. So if you're interested in research, more hands-on, not like the papers they make you write in high school, but more cellular studies and specifically like in vitro and in vivo, biomedical engineering is a really good spot to be in because you're able to have that applicable knowledge that you could use to actually build things and be an engineer, but also that research side that doesn't have to directly lead you to med school.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a lot of options if you pursue
exactly,
biomedical.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you're approaching graduation. Are you going to graduate in December or May? Or?
So I actually graduate in December, so about 3 months. Very exciting, but very scary to think that I won't be able to be at Mississippi State, for a little bit, but I am looking at graduate school currently. I actually want to go and get my PhD. So something that I'm going to do is actually bridge directly from my bachelor's degree to my PhD. I know that there's some confusion there, like I'm not going to get a master's in between, but that was my choice because I know that a PhD is where I want to be at. So instead of taking the time to stop halfway and get the master's, I'd rather just go all the way through and do that 4 to 5 years to get my PhD. I've been looking at a couple other universities. I've had some acceptances, but I think the big thing for me right now is enjoying my last few months here and trying to figure it out as we're going along.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know that you could skip a master's degree and go right into a PhD. Is that fairly common? Is that like an engineering
I don't know
thing?
I don't really know how to speak on it for other majors, but I know for engineering, it is common for people to just skip their master's, get a bachelor's, and then go directly to their PhD, but it's also super common for people that want to just go ahead and get their master's degree as well, and then decide if they want a PhD. That's more of a direct route if you're not sure about your PhD. I know that I want a PhD, so instead of just kind of doing that and stopping and getting my master's, I'd rather just do that direct route.
Yeah, just going right into it.
Exactly.
And I know that, here at Mississippi State, we have some like accelerated programs and Thrive in 5. And have you been able to take advantage of anything like that to kind of help you in your pursuits?
Yeah, I'm actually in the Thrive in 5 program here. So if you don't know, like the Thrive in 5 program is where you're able to start taking graduate courses, and they also count towards your bachelor's degree. So right now I'm in biomedical materials as a 6,000 elective, so as a graduate student, but I take it with other undergraduates and graduate students. It's usually a few extra assignments, just like a normal grad class. So I'm writing an extra paper at the end of the semester for that one, and then I'm also in biomechanics, which I'm taking as a graduate level class as well. So the idea is that if I am to stay at Mississippi State to be able to get my master's or my PhD, those classes, I'm already going to be ahead. So I'll already have about 9 hours applied to my graduate degree by the time I graduate with my bachelor's.
And will those classes transfer if you decide to pursue grad school somewhere else, or?
I'm not really sure as of right now. I guess maybe I just did it for the fact of like, if they don't transfer, that's fine. I'll be prepared. But if they do, also really cool. And then it also leaves that door open where if I want to stay here, I'll already have credits that are applicable to stay here as well.
So it doesn't hurt to kind of pursue that route. And
exactly.
some
And
options.
It's available for most of the engineering disciplines. I know it's not for all. I don't know off the top of my head, but I've taken advantage of it. I've really enjoyed my time. The professors that teach those classes work with you super well. And it's very easy to get involved with that bachelor's and that master's degree as well. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're kind of looking at grad schools and you've got some options. I would imagine looking at grad school, and certainly PhD programs, is a little bit different than looking for an undergraduate school.
Yeah.
I guess what are the things that you're looking for when you're considering different schools?
So for PhD programs specifically, you're investing those 4 to 5 years in one specific discipline with that one specific thesis that you're going to be writing. For me, how I kind of classified that was I wanted to focus on people that I wanted to work with more than a university I wanted to attend, because most of my time is going to be in lab and working with that professor and having that hands-on research experience. So for me, I looked a lot more at people that I wanted to work with versus universities as a whole. Obviously, like I would love to go to, down to the South, in Miami and be on the beach. But if there's not somebody down there that I want to be with, then what's the point of going down there and spending 4 to 5 years? So I think a really big thing for me is that I actually do cardiovascular research here on campus under Dr. LaShawn Simpson. And so when I started looking at programs, a lot of the papers that we were reading in lab and the literature that was being reviewed, I was able to take that initiative to see those people that were working in the field currently and then how I could potentially work with them in the future. And that's kind of how I went about finding graduate schools.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how you kind of learn about the people in the field. I guess you just have to read their research and their work. And
yeah, and it's definitely not hard. I would say, as somebody who had never read a journal article before my junior year, that it's something that's very difficult because the literature is written a lot different than storybooks that you read, or these articles that you're reading in the newspaper versus a book that you read for fun. They're a lot more dense and they're sometimes harder to work through, but it's an art kind of in my head of learning how to read a journal article and being able to pull the conclusions that people are finding and be able to read all their results and know how they got there. And it's something that I actually find really fun because it's kind of like a puzzle for your brain, You're like trying to figure it out. And a lot of times you'll read an article and they won't actually have a concrete answer yet. So you kind of get to play that puzzle with them in a way and be able to see what they did. And then if they don't get the results they were expecting, you're like, well, maybe I could do this different next time, if I were to repeat this study and stuff like that. So I love reading them and I love puzzles.
So it's kind of like research in progress.
Exactly.
Like they're basically updating on
exactly. And I think that goes for most labs. I know in our lab right now, we have a lot of different sub-projects focusing on one big project, and it's a lot of moving pieces. So some days I'll go in the lab and not really get the results that I want. But that doesn't mean that it's a negative impact on my research. And I think something that I think about a lot is Dr. Keith, the Dean of College of Engineering, telling me that when I was complaining one day about not getting my results, him telling me that if you did it once and you got your results, then it wouldn't be called research, it would just be called search. The point of calling it research is because you have to do it over and over again. And that's really stuck with me throughout my career in research as well.
Yeah, and I know that's one of the benefits of the great engineering programs that we have here is that students are able to be involved in research. And you mentioned Dr. Simpson. What areas have you been focused on? I know you mentioned cardio, but kind of
yeah. So I actually focus a lot on cardiovascular, specifically calcification of the arteries. So your arteries are this very flexible structure that's really smooth and nice, but whenever you have calcification occur, that's the buildup of calcium and phosphate molecules that make that nice structure of your artery turn from that flexible to more like a bone-like, so very dense. That's usually what leads to heart attacks. It's the #1 leading cause of death in Americans and worldwide. So instead of using stents and balloons and triple bypass surgery, whatever you need to open your chest and figure it out, my lab is focused more on trying to find more, I guess, less invasive procedures to be able to handle that. So there's some projects that Dr. Simpson has going on that she has students on, like using sclerostin as a form to treat it, or my research is specifically calcifying an actual pig artery and then trying to see that like as a 3D model. So I think that something that I like to say is that if you're interested in research, there's always an opportunity. It's just whether or not you seek it out. And there are always professors that are looking to add, especially undergraduate students. So that's something that's very characteristic of Mississippi State, is that we don't just save the research for the graduate students.
Yeah, and so you want to continue that kind of cardio calcium research at the next level? That's
kind of my plan. Obviously, we'll see what happens. I feel as though I have a lot of knowledge in that subject, and I am very passionate about it, so I would really like to consider moving forward with that. And a lot of the people that I've been talking to in the schools I've been applying to would give me that opportunity. But that's not to say that I want to fit myself in that box either. Like, I like to be uncomfortable and I like to go out of that zone where I have all of this knowledge as well. So ideally I'd like to stay with my cardio cells, but we'll see what happens in the future for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know that one of the other things that you're involved with within the College of Engineering is that you are an engineering recruitment leader. And I know you talk with students, and I guess you've probably learned a lot of fun facts about the college and the university. What are some of your favorites that you tell prospective students?
So some of my favorite fun facts, our civil engineering department has a patented concrete composite that is actually used in the Dudy Noble and Davis Wade renovations. So the concrete you're walking on, probably our civil engineering department helped patent that. That's a fun one that I always like to say. Whenever people talk to me about majors that they're interested in as well, I usually talk about how computer engineering actually has the most labs out of all of the engineering disciplines. You have to take 15 to be a computer engineer.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot. So
those are, that's pretty fascinating facts. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for being here, and we wish you a lot of luck in your last semester and into your future. And I know you probably don't need it, but we're proud of you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
That's all the time we have for today's episode of Momentum. Remember, you can follow along the Bagley College of Engineering on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for watching.